It was a painful adjustment from nerd talk to storytelling talk. A big part of what I do is discovery. That's much more important than pitching. I kind of realized that my message resonates beyond just these numbers on the screen. I'm Patrick Kelley, and I do hard things.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Lullo. I am pumped to be introducing our guest speaker today. Let's get right into it. So you're going to be meeting Patrick Kelley, and he's a dynamic chief technology evangelist at Zoom. Everyone knows Zoom. It's obviously the go-to UCaaS platform. He is recognized as the top 50 UCaaS influencer, and he's got a knack for storytelling. I love his content. He's very passionate about technology, and he's also a distinguished architect, which is pretty amazing. I love that title as well. And he's published, he's an author, sought after public speaker. He's expertly blends marketing and sales enablement. He helps organizations really unlock, the full potential of unified communication. And beyond that, his professional achievements, he's just known for engaging content on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Our company is a huge fan of all that he produces. And it's all around. I love what you're doing, Patrick, because it's not just about technology or what you're doing over there at Zoom. It's about your life. It's about what you're doing. The whole tattooed nerd, brand is amazing, and I just love what you're doing with it. So, without any further delay, I'd like to introduce Patrick Kelley. How you doing, man?
Oh, I appreciate it. I know this is probably not airing on Halloween, but I thought I'd get ready for the occasion, so I wore my my pumpkin shirt. And thanks for the introduction. That was fantastic. I didn't even know I did all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're the deal. I mean, you every time your name comes up in conversations, you have a big fan base of what you're doing because what you're doing is interesting. You're not, I would call it a content creator by job, right? By trade. But, what I've seen in your videos is you really have a passion for storytelling and sharing, what you're doing in the space. And I think because how organic it is, it really resonates, which really leads me to my first question, because, storytelling and technology, I don't know, it's kind of oxymoronic, right? So walk me through how you've been able to blend a very technical industry, a very technical job into a more sales marketing type of role.
That was kind of the journey that I took in the industry, is that when I first started out, like I didn't grow up on a farm in Colorado thinking, God, I can't wait to be an amazing storyteller when I grow up, or I can't wait to make these YouTube videos. That was not a thing, right? It was certainly not a thing. And then when I got into the tech industry, I was super nerdy. I was that guy in the data center deploying servers and reading net traces and looking at packets. And I love doing it, but then I started going into pre-sales, and I thought if I could just tell everybody how nerdy I was, I can sell stuff. But then my audience changed from IT nerds to CIOs and CROs and CFOs, and they didn't give a crap, honestly, about the numbers and the zeros and the ones. They wanted to see how what I was doing was going to solve a problem. And help them in their business and meet a business requirement. So I had to adjust. And it was a painful adjustment from nerd talk to storytelling talk. And it took a few years.
What a great origin story. I love that. So, I mean, what were the big challenges, right? We have a vast audience here. A lot are in sales, a lot are in technology and SaaS. What were those challenges early on that you had to overcome to get to where you're at today with this?
It's learning how to be authentic. And telling something that resonates with that person. And so the first thing you do is you listen, right? It's not to talk. It is to fully understand what their problems they're facing in the industry that they're in, right? It doesn't really matter what vertical you're in, be healthcare or fintech or whatever it is. You have to literally, a big part of what I do, and honestly, what salespeople should be doing, is discovery. That's much more important than pitching.
Love that. So you're a distinguished architect. Love that title, by the way. It's just such a great title. And right now there's a lot of different trends. Obviously, Zoom is on top. We use Zoom here for everything. We don't use Slack. We don't use Teams. We're using Zoom for chat for all of our communications. So we're huge fans. But what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now with technology and UCaaS specifically? And of course, everyone's and their mothers talk about AI. So where does that come into play?
I mean, if I don't say the word AI 50,000
Yeah,
times in a meeting, right? Marketing gets mad at me and pulls me to the side.
right.
Certainly AI is in its infancy, right? And everyone, let's be honest, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, everyone is an AI pitch. Zoom obviously selfishly does too. But 15 years ago, everyone was talking about the internet, and 20 years ago, everyone was talking about email. Those are commodities now in our world today. No one talks about those things. Those are just things that you have. I think AI will, in 3 to 5 years, we won't be talking about AI. It'll just be a part of your life. It'll be a part of your expecting of every single application to produce AI. So certainly an important part today, but I think we're trying to find its relevancy in our day-to-day activity is the hard thing. Is just cranking out AI for the sake of cranking it out doesn't actually solve a problem. Again, circling back, I better have a workflow or a story of why this particular AI feature solves a problem that you might be having. That's really the big ticket.
Yeah. So what are the cool features right now that you can't live without? What are you advising, or is your day look like where you can't live without it?
The thing that I can't live without that's relatively new, it's a new way of working, because the old way of collaborating or producing content is probably 40 years old. And I'll think about this. Think about when you open up Microsoft Word today. What shape is that Word document in? It's in an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper. When's the last time you printed a Word document?
Right.
That's the way we've been working for decades today. I don't think that's going to be the way we're working in the future, because think about this. Hey, you have a prospect that you're working on. You produce a Word document of all their background and history, or maybe their quarterly reports. And then you produce an Excel spreadsheet of the numbers that we might hit, some revenue numbers. And then you produce a PowerPoint document on a pitch. Those are 3 different documents in 3 different places. And you might have several meetings with the customer. You're like, okay, now we've produced several versions of this one. Now you have 30, 40 different documents everywhere. That's the old way of working. I think the new way we're going to work is some sort of living document that's on one single document. And I mean this. There's a couple of vendors out there. There's Coda, there's Notion, and now Zoom's jumped into the mix where, hey, how about we have one document that contains everything? We have a document that contains the Word document, the PowerPoint, the sales pitch, the revenue spreadsheet. What about having a YouTube video or a table or code? Like, how about we have that all in one place associated with one meeting? I think that's the future. That's one thing I can't live without now.
Yeah, it's funny when someone messages me, right? Or I'm on a phone call with somebody or on a Zoom call with somebody, and they say, yeah, I just sent you something. I'm like, okay, what channel? Like, right. Did you send me text? Did you send me email? Did you send me on Zoom? Like, what I literally have to ask them which way in which you sent it to me, right? So how do you see that evolving right now, especially with such big players in the space trying to take market share? Is that, are we going to see that unification? Is that going to be happening more where I don't have to go 15 different places to talk to the same person?
Think about the modalities that you use today. And your company probably uses phone most of all today, right? Some companies, like older tech companies, or even like older industry companies, like, for example, healthcare, still uses fax today. That's crazy to me. Yeah. Insurance companies still use email today. All those are different, separate modalities that are done in different clients. What if we can collapse all of those into one client? And that's truly the goal, not only of Zoom, but Microsoft Teams, Slack, all the big players are trying to do that. How can we get phone, maybe even webinars, event sessions, chat, email, collaboration, all in one place, so as you as a user don't have to remember where the hell stuff's at? It's all in one place. That's the goal.
Absolutely. It's funny because we are a sales team, and in sales it's usually old school belly to belly, I call it, or face-to-face handshaking. And we went fully remote. We were all in office, all on a sales floor, and we went fully remote pre-COVID, which most companies obviously had to force themselves into it, and you guys blew up because of that in a good way. And so my point, though, is that once we made the decision to go fully remote, We did it selfishly because we wanted to have no geographical constraints in our recruitment efforts.
Sure.
We were locally, in a small town. That was our advantage, is we weren't in the big city competing with everyone else. We were in Buffalo, New York, which is where I'm based. And what's interesting is that we said, we need to recruit more people, and I can't attract more people into this office, really, frankly. So we wanted no geographical constraints. But as salespeople, not seeing you and me, not seeing us face to face, is really detriment to that personality type, those extroverts. So we bought everyone a 1080p video camera, webcam, and we still do today. We buy everyone a webcam when they work here, and video is on for everyone. Now, my wife, she's in the healthcare space. I don't even think she has a webcam. Like, they're on calls all the time, but they don't have any webcam. So video first is our approach, and it's really because the space we live in is sales, and it makes sense for us. What are your thoughts? I mean, obviously you're producing amazing content via video, and you guys are in the video teleconferencing space, but what are your thoughts on this whole TikTok video revolution, and where do you see it going with video?
Oh my gosh, that is a multi-layer question. First of all, one of my biggest pet peeves, this may be a little bit off track, is when I go into a video meeting and people don't have their video on. I don't want to talk to a black box. If I want to talk to a black box, I just do a conference call, right? This is not 1984 anymore. This is the world that we live in. So first of all is adoption, and that's really industry specific, probably demographic specific. Just the grayer people get, right? The probably less they use video. That's just the new way we communicate today. And then to layer on that approach is how long do we need to stay on video? How many hour-long meetings do you have? And of that hour-long video meeting, how much of that is truly relevant to what you're talking about? Because you've gotten it done in 20, 15, 10, right? And that's, again, the way we're going as an industry. Think about, you just said TikTok. Think about Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. LinkedIn now is doing shorts. Our attention span as a world is also decreasing. So now you don't have an hour-long webinar to get your pitch across anymore. You got about a minute and a half, and you better say a lot of damn relevant stuff in that minute to get to that next meeting. So you better be really good at content creating and be really good at showcasing your message quickly, because if you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
Love it. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to storytelling, because, you've been a captivating storyteller. When we're watching your stuff, we send it internally here, like, you just have this, great presence, and it's memorable. And I think that's the biggest thing, in sales, is you just have to be memorable, whether you're doing a demo, whether you're making content, whether you're doing a cold call. You got to be memorable, but you got to be memorable for the right reasons. I remember a lot of, you know what I mean? I remember that one time I did an interview, and this funny story real quick. I was doing an interview, and there was a door right behind the guy, and literally all of a sudden the door opens mid-interview, and their spouse was walking out of the bathroom, and they just took a shower. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. That was like 6 years ago. So it's like, you got to be memorable for the right reasons. You have to obviously always be on camera, on presence, and what I call camera ready. So walk me through, like, how do you framework a story? How do you think about content? Because it's hard. You get what I call writer's block. Like, how are you always coming up with great content and great storytelling? Walk me through that process, if you don't mind.
That is hard. That's probably the most difficult part of my job in content creation. It's not creating the content. It's not doing the video or the editing or the mics and all the cameras and all the technology stuff. It is coming up with the story, the strategy, before you even click record. And so two things that I typically do are, one, when I get a question or a problem for a customer, I'm going to assume this is not a unicorn issue, right? I bet a lot of people probably have this exact same problem and question. So when I'm in a meeting with a customer and I find that question, I'm like, you know what? That could be a good video, right? Or problems that I see in the world today. For example, I did a video on the rule of thirds probably a week ago. And I was in a video where there was this lady, and she was really, really low in the camera. And I'm like, that's annoying me, right? So, like, can you not see that we can't see half your face? And then I started thinking, like, maybe people don't even know they're doing it. And it's absolutely true. So I did this video on the rule of thirds, like getting your eyes at 2/3 level. And people were like, Patrick, I had no idea. You've completely changed my view of how to do videos. So it's really trying to, honestly, really almost every video that I'm trying to do, one, entertain you. That's part of it too. But one, to teach you something, right? Teach you something that somebody else asked, or teach you something that I saw. It's really just to help. It's really all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I love the videos where you're on a Zoom call and it's the side face, right? I call it, right? Where you got the display. I know he's got a display in front of him and the
Yeah.
laptop's to the side, but like, I'm looking at the side of your face the whole time for 40 minutes. Is this really happening? All right. So let's take a look at this. So when it comes to connections, right? You obviously, you go to, I'm sure you're going to conferences now. People are coming up to you asking you for autographs, right? Like it's pretty crazy. You have a big network. You have a great presence on LinkedIn, of course. How do you turn those virtual connections, right, and replace them with that face-to-face interaction? And how do you maintain that like authentic relationship in building, a network and have it be not just an online network?
That's funny. My wife and I were in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and we were literally just walking down Pier 38, right? Everybody goes Pier 38 and 39 and has a couple of beers and walks around and listens to music. And I hear out of the corner of my ear, it's the tattooed nerd. And my wife looks at me. She's like, really? This is what we're going to do today? It was a bunch of German dudes that followed me on LinkedIn. And so I got some selfies with them, and it was a lot of fun. But that was the first time I think that I kind of realized that my message resonates beyond just these numbers on the screen, right? You have 20,000 followers. You don't know the 20,000 followers. You have no idea who probably most of them are. But that allowed me to realize that my message was actually making impact and having impact, and people were recognizing me literally in public because of what I do. And so I never started out LinkedIn or YouTube. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to monetize this and be this YouTube influencer and make a ton of money. Never, ever my idea, right? I know 11-year-olds are reviewing toys, making millions of dollars a year. I was just doing it, one, because I enjoyed doing it, but two, it was 100% selfish. The first time I created a video is because my salespeople were making me do these demos like 10, 15 times a week. And honestly, Gabe, I just got damn tired of doing the demo. I'm like, I don't want to do this demo anymore. I want to create a video that does the demo for you. Watch the demo. It's literally the exact same thing I'm going to do if I was in person with you. And so that's how I started creating content. But then I started having people asking me questions on LinkedIn and DMs and commenting on my YouTube page. And I was always really, really resilient, really, and motivated to answer every single question. And once I started doing that, my engagement numbers went up, which was never, again, my intention. But I just saw the more I engaged with my audience and answering questions and everything that I did, just organically, the more followers I got, because then they saw, hey, Patrick's not just posting crap to post stuff, right? He's actually wanting to help and actually will actually engage with us. And so once I started doing that, my community grew. And that's really when I thought, okay, not only do I enjoy doing content, I enjoy engaging with the community in an authentic way, right? That's really what sparked the interest to create even more content.
So I hear you're a donut lover. Right? So if you had to like really design the ultimate donut that represents you, what would that look like?
That could be the craziest question I've ever a donut to represent me.
I see. I'm a honey glazed guy. Like Krispy Kreme, call me simple. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I've seen crazy. Like we have this donut place around our house, and my daughter, she's 11, and she just comes up with these. I'm like, how is this a donut? It looks like a 7-course meal. Like I don't get it. But when you say you're a donut guy, where's your go-to? Like what's your favorite?
The reason I'm a donut lover, probably 10 years ago, probably 8 years ago, when I was 45 years old, I had this goal. I was on this powerlifting team, and I really had this goal to hit this record, this personal record that I had seen and wanted. but I couldn't keep weight. I literally couldn't stay at the weight I needed to stay at. I was a super heavy weight. I was about 270 pounds. And the only way I could do it was to consume massive amounts of donuts. That was the easiest and most enjoyable way, honestly, to keep weight. But I live in the South. I live in South Carolina, where Krispy Kreme is absolute king.
Yeah.
So this is no lie, and I'm probably not real proud of it, but I would go through a dozen donuts every single day. But they were always the natural glaze one. They were always the original. That's just, maybe you just call
great.
me.
I had no idea. We both like the same donut. This is awesome. Man, if I could do that every day, that would be awesome.
Not a healthy way to keep weight, Gabe.
This is not a health podcast. There's enough of those out there.
Don't listen to this one.
All right. So selfishly, we have a lot of sales development reps who are listening to this, and they want to get in the content game. We want to advise them to do so. For their role, it's really we say calls and content is really where our go-to-market teams are heading. Email to us is not a thing anymore, frankly, for prospecting and for sales. So it's calls and content and partnerships. Those are our three things that we're seeing right now. How do you advise someone to jump in the deep end? Like, how do you get someone to start? And where do you advise someone who is just starting off and wanting to create videos, but not be, again, TikTok or Instagram, create professional yet authentic yet human-centric videos that are not as like pushing the envelope, right, to get into those other personal social media? How do you get someone to do that?
First of all, they're not going to want to do it, Gabe. I can tell you right now. They're going to be afraid. When you first started, or when anybody first starts recording their voice or looking at their video, they're cringeworthy, right? People are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I would do this." Even 4 years ago, when I looked at 5 years ago, when I looked at some of the content I create, it's still on YouTube. Please go look at it. It's horrible, but it's not the level of quality that people will watch. They're like, "Hey, okay, if it's in 4K, oh great, that's fantastic. If it's a holographic image, great." People are watching for the content, not for the quality. So one, get that out of your head, right? Is that, hey, I have to have this amazing multi-camera setup with professional lightings. No, you don't. You can literally just tape it off your phone. I say, look at that. I just aged myself. Tape it off your phone. No one knows.
What's a tape? Yeah, I remember that.
You have the best phone right here. One of the best cameras right here. It's a 4K 60 frame per second camera. That's all you need. Maybe a little bit of lighting. But the whole point is, you just have to jump in, and you have to fight through that cringe, and it's going to be okay. One of the first things I do is tell people, learn how to read a script. Don't think you can just wing it. Like, I'm going to hit the record button and go for a minute and a half, and I'm going to wing it. No, you're not. You're going to say and look around all the time. So the very first thing you do before you even hit record, write a script for yourself. And not some Hollywood script, some authentic script, the things that you would actually say to a person in a real live conversation. Type it and write it exactly how you would say it, and then practice it over and over again till you're sick of practicing it, and learn how to read off of that script. Don't just read the script we can all do monotone reading of a script. Say it like you would say it. But when you have that script in front of you, it creates that confidence that I don't have to think about what I'm going to say next. You know what you're going to think about because it's really right there in front of you. Practice it a number of times. And then when you can say that whole thing without saying or hit the record button. And then it'll feel natural. It'll feel more authentic, because those are the exact words that you're saying coming from you. And now you can concentrate on your gestures, on your facial expressions, on your eye content, on your eye movement. All those things will now be your primary driver. It's not what you're going to say, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable in front of the screen.
Okay, this is awesome advice. Okay, so now we have the video, we have the content, they're producing the content. Next question. How do you measure success of your content? Where are you looking, right? You have those analytics, we have all these different tools to measure, your KPIs. What do you look for? And how do you not get sucked into the wrong things, right? Like, are we tracking likes here? What are we looking at?
Don't chase. That's the number one thing that people do, is chase the likes.
Right.
That's not what you're going after. You're not going after the likes. And those are great. Those are fine. But everybody, like on Instagram and YouTube, want the likes. But what you are as a salesperson is somebody that wants to get engagement. And those are completely different numbers. I've produced videos that have gotten 180,000 likes, 3 comments. That doesn't help me. That it maybe entertains you, maybe 180,000 people, but that didn't help me engage my community. Now, changing that tactic is if you strive for engagement, you're going to create different content. And there's 2 layers of content, right? There's the video layer of content, but there's also the most important part that people forget about is the stuff that you write in your LinkedIn post. That's the engaging part. The video complements that from an SDR perspective. You want to engage your audience to say, I want to elicit a response. Hopefully a pretty good one is really what you're going after. If you want to go after bad responses, you're going to get a bad audience. That's not what you're going after when you are doing content creation for your job. You're going after thought-provoking questions. Ask questions at the end. So here's a quick formula when you're writing content for LinkedIn. 1, hook. The very first five words should be, why should they read the rest of this and then read the rest of it and then watch your video? You got to hook them. And that's probably a problem that you're facing in the world. I don't care. Pick widget X as a problem. Say, hey, here's the problem. Here's how I'm going to solve the problem. And then prompt a question of, hey, are you having this problem too? What are some ideas you would do to solve this problem? Now I've created a hook. I've created an ability to motivate them to read the content, and I've created the ability to then engage with the content.
Love it. This is awesome. All right, final question on this, because I think this is the third piece of it. Continuation. We talked a little bit about writer's block, but how does the feedback from your audience influence your content strategy for future posts?
That's a great question. And the first thing, and here's something I do all the time too, is now, and it takes a little bit of time, but this is part of your job, so maybe do it. When I post something, I don't just post it and go. I don't just schedule a post for 1 o'clock and go on with my day. I carve out time when I make a post on LinkedIn or YouTube to be around for 30 minutes, an hour, engaging real time with my post. Now, when you're first starting out on LinkedIn, you might not have thousands of people that are following you and the engagement might be pretty slow, but you just have to keep at it. So now when I post something, like yesterday I posted something, I stayed around for an hour afterwards, engaging with real-time questions, which then prompts people like, oh my gosh, this guy is literally answering these questions live, and that engagement increases. So you have to literally stick around for that engagement and increase that level of authenticity. People are like, oh my God, this guy's real. He's not just posting content to post it. So also, when I talked about engaging at the very bottom of your post, ask for ideas. Say, hey, this is the problem we're solving today. Are there any more problems that you would want me to tackle in the future? Is there any other content you'd like me to create in the future? That'll give you ideas for content strategy. Remember, I just told you the hardest thing is content strategy? Let your audience feed your content strategy.
Love it. So Harley Davidsons, I ride a Harley. I know you have several Harleys, you've told me. And it's not just about Harleys. I want to talk about them for a second, but it's more about what we were just talking about. I think when I first started following you and saw you, you posted a picture of you and a bike.
Yeah.
And I think you were maybe at Sturgis or an event, something like that. And that's what caught my attention. Now, does that live on LinkedIn? And it's interesting. I posted a picture of my family. It was my daughter's first day of school in September. And someone commented and said, how does this relate back to sales or marketing? And it's interesting, right? So it's like, and I want to talk about bikes, but where does personal pics, like my family picture or a motorcycle or something we're doing as people, relate back to sales or UCAS or, SDRs or Zoom? Like how does that live, and what's enough and what isn't enough, and what's good and what's bad?
Wow. Powerful question.
Okay.
And it's not a 0 or a 1, right? There's a gray area in there for how personal do I get on LinkedIn, because it's a professional but also social media platform, right? 10 years ago, we were posting resumes and asking for jobs.
Yeah, very different.
That's not what we're doing today on LinkedIn. So you have to be cognizant and be aware that people aren't at work 24/7. They're not SDRs 24/7, right? They have outside interests, outside lives, outside family, outside hobbies. These, you can pull these in small segments into your feed because people want to know you and connect with you beyond just your work, right? People are like, hey, Patrick's doing great on UCAS, but they also like, hey, all of a sudden he posts a picture from Myrtle Beach Bike Week on a street glide. They're like, he's actually a real person, which then leads to more authentic connection, right? So I'm not posting my picture of my kids at Halloween tonight, probably. That's maybe the next level, but there's a part of you that can release from that professional, I'm not in a suit every day, to, hey, here's me in London. I was maybe working, but hey, you know what? I visited a couple of pubs as well, and my take on London versus the US. Those are personal issues. So you have to find your balance. And if it feels cringeworthy, probably don't post it. But there's certainly a level of letting people know who you are as a person, and that's going to be getting beyond just the scope of work. It's going to be being a little bit personal.
Love that. So, what is your favorite bike? You said you have a few. What's your favorite Harley and why?
It depends on how I'm riding, right? So if I'm with my wife, who is probably going to be on her phone and listening to music and looking at the world, I'm going to be on my street glide, right? It's got a nice, because I'm old, I got a nice little big fairing in front of me, it's blocking the wind. I got the stereo cranked up. It's a lot more comfortable. That's probably the go-to bike when I'm with my wife. Now, when I'm with my buddies and I want to be kind of cool, I'm on my 1974 Shovelhead, because this is a very rare bike that I built, and you're not going to see it on the road too often. It's always a conversation starter. Let's be honest. We could all go to any bike week or any bike night, and there's going to be 90% street glides, road glides there. Great. But if you go on a 1974 shovel, you're probably going to be the only one there. And I can't even go to a gas station without somebody pulling me to the side like, oh my God, where'd you get this bike? And they want to hear the story of the bike. And there's that instant connection with this person that knows and recognizes this is an old school bike. And I want to talk to this dude because he's probably pretty cool if he's riding that badass bike.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. All right. Fun closing. Let's wrap this up. If you could have a virtual meeting with any tech icon, dead or alive, who would that be, and what would be the questions you would be wanting to ask them?
Tech icon. I know everyone's probably going to say Steve Jobs or Bill Gates and stuff like that.
The reason why I'm asking is I think you aren't going to say that person, right? It's like, yeah, you're absolutely right, but I'm thinking you're not. That's just what I know about you.
You know what? I'm going to relate it to tech in a way. One of my favorite leaders in the world, because I used to work for ESPN, which was bought by ABC, which was bought by Disney. Bob Iger, I think, who's the CEO of Disney, probably one of the most innovative leaders in our world today. He is so authentic and so genuine, has the highest ethical morals that I've seen in a leader. But think of the job he's done turning Disney around. And here's how I'll pull tech into it. He's literally assimilated Star Wars and Lucasfilms. He's assimilated Marvel and assimilated Pixar, leaders in the tech industry in the film space. He's completely turned Disney around with his leadership and with his tech. So if I could meet with Bob Iger, I totally would.
That's awesome. I hope that happens for you, man. Listen, Patrick Kelley, you are the man. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. How do people get a hold of you? Where do they come find you? And anything that you want to plug or share with the audience, that'd be awesome.
Well, you can always find me on YouTube at Patrick Kelley, Tattooed Nerd. You can always find me on LinkedIn at Patrick Kelley. I produce content there, hopefully a couple of times a week if I have the time. And I produce content in the UCAS space, but well beyond as well. So those are two areas where you can reach me. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Zoom, I'll selfishly plug that there is a great book called The Ultimate Zoom Cookbook that I might have wrote.
Yes, you did. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you, Gabe.